Hello and welcome to the show. I am Joe Tophat. There sure are a lot of characters on Stranger Things. In fact, there are too many. Way too many. But I'm not here to talk about that. Instead, I'm going to talk about one character in particular, and how the fandom and the show itself treats him pretty poorly. And that character is Mike Wheeler. Before going any further, I want to state that Mike is my personal favorite character on Stranger Things. That doesn't mean I'm blind to his faults. I can like a character and still acknowledge when they're in the wrong. That being said, I've noticed that both the show and the fandom don't seem to think he's ever in the right. Just go on Reddit and you'll see what I mean. I'm not going to go over everything. That would take too long. I'm going to go over the most common points people bring up against him. I won't go over why he isn't annoying like so many people bring up, nor am I going to go over why Finn Wolfhard, Mike's actor, isn't a bad actor, since those are matters of opinion. I'm just going to stick to the facts. So without further ado, let's begin. He's a terrible friend. Mike is incredibly loyal to his friends, maybe to a fault. He went out of his way to find Will, and looked after him when he was possessed. He was concerned for Lucas when Eleven threw him against a wall. Mike and Dustin also tried to reschedule a D&D game just so they could be at Lucas's basketball game, even though they're not fans of basketball. As for Dustin, Mike willingly jumped off a cliff to prevent Troy from cutting him. Do I really need to go on? Some have claimed that Mike abandoned his friends for Eleven, but that isn't true. Even though he puts Eleven first, Mike still values his friends. He did go to the movies with them without Eleven, and it seemed like something he does a lot. He also yelled at Eleven when she hurt Lucas. This shows that, although he loves her, Mike would never tolerate Eleven hurting his friends. Mike does need to work on balancing his time with Eleven and his friends, since he tends to prefer hanging out with her more. There's nothing wrong with him putting Eleven first. It's just that Mike needs to learn how to balance. For the most part, he does try. He isn't perfect, but we do see that no matter what, his friends will always be important to him. He's a jerk towards Will. This accusation specifically comes from season 3 and 4. So many people like to say Mike was a complete jerk to Will. I'm not going to pretend like Mike didn't make mistakes, but I don't believe he was completely in the wrong. I honestly think Will was more of a jerk to Mike. In season 3, all Will wants to do is play D&D with his friends. The problem is, his friends are now getting girlfriends and moving on with their lives. Will seemed particularly annoyed with Mike's relationship with Eleven. Mike and Eleven were always looking for excuses to run off and make out. I can understand why this would annoy Will, but I can also understand why Mike and Eleven would want to be together as often as possible. They had spent a year apart, and they just want to make up for lost time. When Mike started having problems with Eleven, Will never showed any concern for him. He just kept pushing Mike and Lucas to play D&D, even though they clearly didn't want to. If Will had shown some compassion for his friend, or suggest they play the game as a way to cheer Mike up, I could see Will's point. However, Will wasn't trying to cheer up a friend. His reasons for pushing D&D were purely selfish. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not bashing Will. He went through hell in seasons 1 and 2, and he just wants to hang out with his friends. That's understandable. Will is also having a hard time growing up. Again, that's understandable. He's probably afraid that he's losing the only friends he ever had. Seeing how Will isn't exactly a popular kid, that's a scary thought. The problem is that Will didn't handle the situation very well. He should have shown a little concern for Mike, who's going through a rough time. Now for that fight between Will and Mike. Everyone focuses on the fact that Mike said, "It's not my fault you don't like girls," and use this as an example of Mike being a terrible friend to Will. Yet they forget what led Mike to make this comment. Will was going to ride his bike in the rain, and Mike tries to stop him. Mike is actually apologetic for not wanting to play D&D. Will then unleashes all his frustrations to Mike, and then refers to 11 as a stupid girl. You don't insult 11 in front of Mike. That's a big no-no. Mike then tries to calmly explain to Will that they are just growing up and moving on. Will then runs off in the rain as Mike tries to apologize. This was actually very well done. Neither side was shown to be completely right or wrong. Only problem is that the writers just kind of dropped it, which is a shame, since I thought it was better than the drama between Mike and 11. Will never apologizes for the way he acted. In fact, he continued to be insensitive to Mike's problems with 11. What a jerk. Will is a lot better in season 4. I did like how he was mad at 11 for lying to Mike. A lot of people are mad at Mike for not hugging Will at the airport. Honestly, I don't see what the big deal is. Guys, especially teens, usually don't like to hug other guys. He did pat him on the back, and he seemed happy to see Will. Mike even asked about the painting. Maybe it's just me, but I don't think Mike did anything wrong here. I do think Mike was unfair to Will after finding out 11 had been lying to him. 11 was the one who had been lying, not Will. As for Mike not calling or writing to Will very often, I think Will should have made more of an effort to contact Mike. Mike does apologize to Will for how he acted, and Will apologizes as well. That surprised me. With the way the show is towards Mike, I didn't think he would get one. It's pretty refreshing. He was mean to Max. This one is about how he acted towards her in season 2. I don't have too much to say about it because there really isn't much to say. I'm not going to pretend like he was the nicest guy. A lot of his behavior was due to watching the girl he loves die in front of his eyes. He misses 11, and he tortures himself every day trying to contact her on the off chance she's still alive. I'm not saying how he treated Max was right. It's just that he was going through some issues. Plus, I think people tend to forget that Max wasn't exactly nice to the boys when they first met. Max goes from wanting nothing to do with the boys to suddenly wanting to be part of their group. It was kind of random. Mike wasn't hostile towards her at first, until Max basically ruined trick-or-treating for him. The way I saw it, Mike simply didn't want to be friends with Max after the way she behaved. He also didn't want to replace 11. He was overly hostile towards her, but he never sought out to be mean to Max, nor did he take any pleasure in her suffering. Mike was concerned after 11 pushed her off the skateboard and helped her up. Call me crazy, but I think trying to break someone's neck is worse than being mean. Mike does come to accept Max as a member of the party. Then in season 3, Max suddenly hates Mike with a passion. I've talked about this in another video, so I'll be brief. Max causes tension between Mike and 11 and takes way too much pleasure in his suffering. As bad as Mike's behavior was in season 2, he never enjoyed seeing Max suffer. She also framed his concern for 11's safety as him wanting to control her. I'll talk more about that later. Max's worst moment was when she made fun of Mike after he saved 11. It's interesting how he jumped in to save her while Max never even tried. Even after Mike explains why he didn't want 11 to try and find the mind flayer, when 11 asked Mike to trust her, Max gave him a dirty look, basically saying he should trust her. It's like his concerns didn't mean anything. I will give Max credit for this. She was a lot nicer to him after he admitted he loves 11. He was disrespectful to Hopper. Hopper kept 11 in a cabin for a year without telling anyone. He forbid her from talking to anyone else. She wasn't even allowed to tell Mike she was okay. Hopper made no effort to try to get to know Mike. He acted like Mike was just some boy 11 happens to be dating, when in fact they have a bond that goes way back before Hopper adopted her. When Hopper tried to have a talk with them, he made it as awkward as possible. Mike whispers something in 11's ear, and she laughs. Joyce told Hopper that they were going to try to push his buttons. He just has to remain calm. Hopper doesn't do that. Instead, he lies about Mike's grandma, locks him in his truck, and threatens him, forcing Mike to lie to 11. Then Hopper lies to Joyce and 11. He also never apologizes. Mike was just behaving like an immature teen. Hopper was behaving like an abusive asshole. I like Hopper as a character, but I find most of his actions hard to defend. If 11 was really honest in her presentation, she wouldn't be talking about him in a positive light. He is a toxic boyfriend with 11. That's a lie. It amazes me how many fans give Hopper a free pass, even though he basically kept 11 prisoner. Yet whenever Mike does something minor, like yell at 11, or lie to her, suddenly he's the biggest piece of shit in the world. One of the things I hate about Max as a character is that she's become a mouthpiece for all the Mike haters. Her accusations of Mike being a controlling boyfriend, or a bad boyfriend in general, often gets repeated. There is not a shred of evidence to support that. Mike has never tried to control 11. He always did what she wanted. When they were making out at the start of season 3, Mike was the one to break the kiss, to sing. It was 11 who wanted them to stop singing so they could continue kissing. 11 was also the one who closed the door with her powers after Harper started yelling. Mike didn't tell her to do that. 11 also enjoyed pissing off Harper as much as Mike. How come Harper never tried to talk to 11 about her behavior? Later, when they were with the others, if you look closely, 11 whispers into Mike's ear, just before they make some lame excuse to leave, indicating that it was her idea to leave and not his. Not once has Mike ever tried to force himself on her. With 11's limited experience, he could easily take advantage of her, but he doesn't. That makes him a pretty good boyfriend.
But yeah, Mike never took 11 to places like the mall. When he saw her and Max there, he was upset and told Max 11 wasn't allowed to be there. He was treating her like a pet, so that makes him a toxic boyfriend. He also lied to her. 11 had every right to dump his ass.
Let me ask you, Mike haters, a question. Whose rule was it that 11 couldn't go to the mall? It was Harper's. Mike was only obeying the rule his girlfriend's dad set. If Harper had found out that Max took 11 to the mall, he would have been mad, and he'd have every right to be. But he never does find out, because this show wanted to push an agenda. Now let me ask you another question. If Mike had disobeyed Harper's rule and took 11 to the mall, would you praise him for doing it? Or would you claim he's disrespecting Harper and corrupting 11? Think about it. Harper is also the one who forced Mike to lie, and Mike felt terrible about it afterwards. Yet when Mike tried to explain to 11 why he lied, she took Harper's side. This never made any sense to me. Harper was the one who told Brenna in season 1 where 11 was, which almost got her and her friends killed. It was because of Harper that 11 spent time living in the woods. I don't want to beat up Harper too much for this. He was placed in a no-win situation, and he made the best choice he could have made at the time. He also provided 11 food and later shelter. It's just that this show basically forgets that it was his fault she was placed in danger. I always thought one of the characters, possibly Mike, should have confronted him about it. That could have added some interesting tension. As for keeping 11 prisoner at the cabin, that's a little harder to justify. I get he was trying to keep her safe, but the way he went about it made no sense. You mean to tell me that Harper's big plan was to keep a prisoner in the cabin forever? Also, the lab knows that Harper knows about her. If they were really looking for her, wouldn't they find it suspicious that Harper was living in a cabin with a tripwire? Doesn't that scream that he's hiding something? When 11 was at Mike's house, she was allowed to go outside and interact with people other than Mike. Hell, Mike was happy when he thought 11 could live a normal life, and he seemed to want her to be around other people. Harper not only forbid her from talking to anyone else, he forces her to watch the boy she loves torture himself every day trying to contact her, causing them to both die a little each day. To his credit, Harper does realize what he did was wrong and apologizes. Then this season, he threatens a teen boy, lies about it, and never owns up to it. It's weird that 11 would take Harper's side after all the crap he pulled. A lot of people like to condemn Mike for saying girls are a different species, while ignoring the fact that it was said in a private conversation that 11 was spying on. If Mike had been the one spying on 11 and overheard her make a similar remark, how many of you Mike haters would take his side? Mike's concern for 11 overexerting her powers has been framed by Max and Mike haters as his way of controlling her. That's not true. He knows from experience that 11 is willing to die protecting her friends. Mike loves her and would do anything to prevent that from happening. Other than Mike, nobody was concerned about the danger 11 was putting herself in. Hell, Max didn't think they needed a backup plan because they had 11. Yet despite his concerns, Mike still allowed her to do what she wanted. In the end, his fears were proven justified, for 11 lost her powers. Of course, he's never given credit for that. It was weird how the writers had Mike claim he wanted 11 all to himself in that stupid apology scene. He never acted like he wanted her all to himself. Hopper literally kept 11 all to himself. As for season 4, people had this strange idea that Mike doesn't love 11 anymore. I don't understand where this came from. This is easily disproven when you look at the facts. 1. Mike is maintaining a long-distance relationship with 11 because he wants to. 2. He's written a lot more letters to her than he did to Will. 3. Mike is openly affectionate with 11 when he first arrives at the airport. 4. Mike handpicked flowers from Hawkins for 11, just to remind her of home. He gives her yellow flowers because he knows that's her favorite color, but he added some violets in for contrast. He obviously put a lot of thought in this gift. 5. He's interested in meeting her friends, and he's willing to do anything she wants to do. 6. He's made this trip to California just to be with her. Do I really need to go on?
But Joe, Mike has never came out and told 11 he loves her. Even in his letters he doesn't say it, so that's proof he no longer loves her.
Honestly, I think this is a dumb plot point, because there's no way Mike should have any trouble telling 11 he loves her, right to her face, after everything they've been through. With that said, the show provides a rather dumb explanation as to why he can't say I love you. Mike feels inferior to 11 since she has superpowers and he doesn't. He's afraid that one day she'll realize she doesn't need him anymore and leave. Confessing his love would only make it hurt more. Losing 11 is Mike's biggest fear, and he'll do anything to prevent that from happening. So I guess he won't say I love you to stop her from leaving him. It's a pretty dumb reason. I prefer the fan theories which say that he has difficulty saying I love you because he never heard his parents say it. People also express their feelings differently. Mike has always found it easier to say I love you to 11 through actions. Whether it's telling her she's really pretty, kissing her, or worrying about her safety, these are just Mike's way of saying I love you. Does 11 need to hear him say these words? Yes. And Mike learns how important these words are to her. He dodges bullets and travels to a secret lab in Nevada just to tell her, I love you.
He literally saves her life by saying these words. If that doesn't convince you that he loves her, I don't know what will. Now for that infamous bullying scene. A lot of people condemn both Mike and Will for not doing more to stop that from happening. In Will's defense, he's not a confrontational guy. Even if he was, Will isn't exactly He-Man. What could he have done against a mob? In Mike's case, he has been lied to by 11. He thinks Angela is her best friend, so when he sees them skating off together, he thinks 11 is skating with a friend. It's only after she leaves that Will tells Mike the truth. He doesn't want to believe it at first, because he can't believe 11 would lie to him. Things are happening so fast. It takes him a moment to process what's going on. When he figures out what's happening, he takes action. Mike is a terrible skater, so there's no way he could have skated out there to stop it. So he does what he can and gets the DJ to stop the music. When the milkshake was dumped on 11, Mike does his best to get to her. Problem is, there's a crowd that prevents him from getting to her. 11 runs away from him because she doesn't want to face Mike. Look, I understand why 11 felt the need to lie to Mike. If I was in her shoes, I most likely would have done the same thing. With that said, Stranger Things shoots itself in the foot by making a big deal that Mike lied to her in Season 3, only to have 11 lie to him in Season 4. 11 is now the world's biggest hypocrite. According to Max, Mike was a piece of shit, treated her like garbage, so that was grounds for dumping his ass. Mike was forced to lie and felt bad about it. 11 didn't just lie once. She lied to him for months and doesn't seem to feel guilty about it. She wouldn't even admit to Will that she's lying. After the prank, 11 wanted Angela, her bully, to help her maintain her lie to Mike. By the show's logic, 11 is a piece of shit who treated Mike like garbage, so that means he should dump her ass. Mike isn't even mad that she lied. He was mad when 11 hit Angela in the face with a skate. Some think Mike was a jerk to 11 because according to them, she was just standing up for herself. As bad as Angela was, she didn't threaten the lives of 11 or her friends. So what 11 did was wrong, as it is now legally assault. Mike has every right to be mad at her for doing that. Mike later apologizes for how he acted at dinner and tries to reassure 11. He tells her that she doesn't have to lie to him since he's been bullied his whole life. 11 shuts him out and accuses him of thinking she's a monster. 11 is projecting here. If Mike really wanted to get nasty about it, when 11 says he doesn't love her anymore, he could have said, "You've been lying to me for months. How do I know you're not lying when you say it?" He could have also made a big deal about the fact that she dumped him over a lie, but he doesn't. He's actually pretty calm and mature when he's talking to her. I know I'm going to get hate for saying this, but 11 is more at fault than Mike. She intentionally lied to him for months and never apologized for it. Does she even feel guilty about it? Even though I agree that Mike needs to come out and tell 11 he loves her, the fact that she lied to him for so long is the bigger problem. I get that some of you think I'm being a little hard on 11, but that's only because the show lets her off the hook too easy. I'm not suggesting that Mike and Eleven's relationship should be perfect. No relationship is. What I am saying is that if they're gonna have issues, both need to acknowledge what they did was wrong and own up to it. The only thing I wanted out of season 4 was for Eleven to apologize to Mike. Well, I didn't get what I wanted. There's a lot more I have to say, but this video is running longer than I intended. I'll end things by saying that none of the characters on Stranger Things is perfect, and that's what makes them interesting. The problem is that Mike seems to be held to a different standard than the others. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.